the Sacred Attunement Show with Asher Countryman, unlocking the power of mind, body, soul abundance. What is sacred attunement? Sacred attunement is a holistic approach to unlocking your personal power and mastering your spiritual growth. If you are ready to embrace positive habit change and experience a vibrant, happy, healthy lifestyle, then you are in the right place. Inner peace, love, and harmony made easy. The Sacred Attunement Show starts now. All right, welcome back to another amazing episode today with your host, Asher Countryman, and our special guest, Natalie Biesel. We're so excited today. We're going to be talking about how to upscale your business. So Natalie and I are both coaches. She works with creative minds and entrepreneurs. I love to work and serve entrepreneurs and also women in general to teach them how to live by their version of a vibrant, happy lifestyle with mind, body, soul techniques to help create healthy habits. And I'm excited because I met Natalie a couple months ago, actually, when I was visiting back in Boise, Idaho with some friends, and we just energetically connected and we vibed and we aligned, and I just loved everything that she shared about her purpose and her passion and why she's here and how she serves the world. And I thought she would be a great person to interview on the podcast because, I'm an entrepreneur and I have things in how I want to upscale my business. And I'm sure many of you listeners are also entrepreneurs and creatives out there. And I thought she would be a great piece to share her wisdom, her knowledge, and her passion with us today. So Natalie, I'd love to hear a little bit about you. What's your story? How'd you get here? What do you do? All the goodies.
Yeah, thank you, Asher. Just want to say thanks for having me on your show. I'm really delighted because, like you said, a couple months ago, whenever we met, I was like, oh my gosh, there's just something about her. I think we talked for like hours and geeked out on business. And so there was like an instant connection. And I love connecting with people like that because I think there's like people like us, it can feel very isolating when you're doing this business thing. And so it's always fun to meet like a fellow creative, spiritual minded, entrepreneur, and you can kind of like geek out on these topics. So I think we both geeked out for hours. And then I was like, oh, that was awesome. So thank you for the warm intro. The warm feelings are mutual, and I appreciate you saying that. And to answer your question, my journey really started I worked on creative teams for 2 decades before I started my own thing. And I started at the very bottom as a 16-year-old, creative working for a corporation. Actually, even before that, at a real estate company when I was 15. I was like taking photos of the houses and like designing their brochures. And I was like, there's something about this creative component to this job, even as a 15-year-old, that I loved. And so my next job was on this like creative team, a company called Atria in Louisville. And it was like this entire floor of creatives whenever I came in, like the walls were painted different colors. It was like, all the creatives had like tattoos and they were all like looked so cool, and there was Macintosh computers, and I was like, what the hell is a Mac? Like I'd never seen anything. They had illustrators, production artists, designers, and I was just like, my mind was blown, but something inside me was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. These are my people. And so like I literally, went from the bottom, worked on teams for over almost 2 decades, like 18 years. Finally, at the end, I was managing a team of designers. And that's when, at the last, I guess this was like 5 years ago, I really started, like the entrepreneurial tug was strong. And it wasn't just like a tug. It was literally felt like I was being pulled in this direction that I didn't know what it was. And so like, it's interesting because, my mom is a very typical like American worker. She's like, go to college, get a job, and she works for retirement and all these things. So it was very strange to be getting these entrepreneurial tugs when like I didn't see that in my family. I didn't know what the hell was going on. And so like, but I felt like I was just like getting pulled. So like over 5 years ago, decided to, take the leap because I was like, surely, I've got all these skills and talents, like infinite skills at this point, I can do anything. But what I didn't realize was like, how freaking hard that would be those first 5 years. I think whenever a lot of us think like, oh, whenever I quit my job and I take the leap, then everything will be peachy. Oh, hell no. I didn't know what I was doing. I felt like I was like struggling to stay afloat. And even though I had saved some money, like very quickly, that money ran out. And I was like, what am I doing? How do I get clients? And I remember I was like literally paying for all these programs that were really, in retrospect, like way out of my league where I was a beginner. And so I struggled for several years. And it was very like to know that you have all these skills and talents and not be able to put them to use is a very challenging and hard feeling. And so like that's entrepreneurship, like those first few years, like if anybody's there and you feel that way, God, I'm sending lots of love and it's like
I'm in that journey right now. So much of what you said has resonated so far. Like I felt the same of, felt this tug, when I discovered yoga and I was like, oh, I feel this tug. I'm like, I have to teach yoga. That's my thing. And found energy healing of the harmonium practitioner. And I was like, there's something more. I'm like, how do I serve the world in an even bigger capacity? And then I got that same tug to be like, it's time for you to be an entrepreneur. I'm like, an entrepreneur, like of what kind? And same story, like no one else in my family has ever started a business on either side, so it's like, oh, I'm the black sheep, like just jumping out and getting ready to do the thing.
And it's terrifying.
It is terrifying. And I'm literally in that middle of that cycle of like, okay, like sure, I've worked with clients, like great reviews, good transformational stories, but there's still like that little struggle piece of like, oh, how do we get from point A to point B? And like, we're somewhere like in the middle right now. Like, how do we figure that out to reach the masses? Like you said, there's so many gifts to share, and how do we get visible in that?
Well, I would say for someone like you or anyone else who's going through that, like just trust that there is an end in sight. And you can trust, because I was in that for years and I was like, I swear to God, if this is what being a business owner and entrepreneur is, I'm out, because it's so hard. But at the same time, like if I could go back to myself and tell myself some advice, it would be like, hey, look, I know this sucks, but there is an end in sight and you will have the clarity that you need, because like in that space, I call that, you're literally like floating around. It's a very creative space. You don't have anything solid. And all this time you're getting like, you're not really sure what the heck it is you're here to do. So for me, there were all these things that were swirling around. And it was like, sometimes I would sit down to write or have to even like pull over because like a verbal vomit of something would come out. I'm like, oh God, there's a post, here's an offer, here's this, here. Like journaling during that time. I did a ton of hiking, walks. I mean, I'm talking like years of trying to figure out what it was, because when I finally landed on, oh, hey, creatives are my people. Hello, how did I make that complicated? But it took me like years just to get that clarity. And then I'm obsessed with the business side of it. So like business and marketing are my zone of genius. And also I'm a creative. I am a creative. Creatives are my people. Every single time I speak, someone reaches out to me, and I guarantee 99% of the time they're creative in some way. They're like, even if they're working for someone now, they're like, oh yeah, I used to be a ballet dancer. I used to like, I'm a wannabe writer. And I'm like, of course you are, because only creative people reach out to me.
Yeah.
But if I could tell myself one thing, I think the first business course that I took was built by an engineer. So one of the first courses in business that I took, is very like, her teaching style was like, okay, business, you need to track every single thing. You need to track, like, you need to have all your scheduled times, like your whole calendar should be full. This is how you do it. And you need to track every single piece of momentum that you get. And I remember like being in that course and I'm like, this is what business is like. Oh my God. Then here comes another spiral where I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, can I do this? Like, and then years later, I actually signed up for this mastermind, and I'll never forget, because one of the women in the group, she was talking, we were all like kind of sharing about our business. And she said, oh yeah, I do forest bathing. That's how I get my clients. We go on these group hikes and I get clients on the regular as a result. And I was like, wait, what? Then this other woman in the group, same mastermind, she was like, yeah, my business model is whenever people have book ideas, I help them like basically birth their book idea. And she was super successful. And I was like, wait,
Yeah.
and that's it. And that's all you do. And she was like, yeah. And I have it was so simple and it was so creative. And like, that was a turning point for me. And I'm going to tell you, it took years to get to that point of clarity. So like, if you're on that journey, sometimes it takes a while to get that clarity or permission. It's like, oh, other people are doing this in a creative way and I can resonate with that.
I love how you said that. Like, I'm learning that myself as well, like over the last 6 or so months of like, oh, remember that thing you learned in yoga, like simplicity is divinity? I'm like, why can't that same concept apply when you're an entrepreneur and a business owner of going out there and finding your ideal client, right? Like, I think like you said, we overcomplicate things, and being those creatives, I've experienced that too. There's so many ideas that bubble up and this and this and that. And it's like, okay, like, how do we come back into tapping into our intuition, trusting, like you said, trust the intuition, trust the flow that's coming in, and just stick with that and roll with that, because I think that's a great space to be in. And again, coming back to the simplicity of it, and I like where we're at right now. Let's hold our thought and we will take a quick break. So hang tight with us. And on your break, I just encourage you to take a few long, deep breaths, tap into your own intuition, listen to your heart, feel with your mind, and we will be back in just a moment. All right, welcome back, everyone, from that short, quick break. It's been a great discussion so far. We're talking about this self-discovery and how to become an entrepreneur, and remembering the simplicity in the things that we are trying to do to serve the world. And Natalie, you mentioned a little bit about your struggle to gain that clarity of how you honed in on the clients that you serve, which are creatives. Right, remembering like you were a creative, you are a creative, so like, why not work with creatives? Like,
yeah,
right?
Hello. And it's normally, I will admit, this was a coach that I worked with. It was like I was on the verge, and you can feel it in your body when you're on the verge of this clarity. And I was so close, and I was working with this business coach, and she started asking me these questions about like my messaging so that I could get clear on it. And she was like, sounds like you work with creatives. And I was like,
duh. Right.
So my point is, sometimes it's literally so close to you that you can't see it. And so sometimes it's nice to have, and I've had, been hiring coaches since I was in my 20s. Sometimes it's nice for them to just point out. It's almost like something that's right here that we can't see because it's such a part of us. And I think as creatives, literally it's in our bones. It's in our soul. We are creative. That's what we are. So like, it's hard to see like, oh, this is you. It's like, wait, no, it's a part of me. It's not separate. So sometimes those things, it's nice to have like an outsider's perspective, because they're like, well, I see that you obviously are creative and therefore should work with creatives. And I'm like, why have I? Yeah. So sometimes it's a little bit to see like those pieces. And I find like one of the things that I wish I would have done is, because I paid for so many courses to get clarity that I wasn't ready for. I was like, why am I trying to learn Kajabi and all these things when I was like entrepreneur 101, and if I would have gone back, I would have spent all that money, because I'm talking an insane amount of money. But I realize now that I was like struggling with not having that clarity. So I was like forking out money to try to find it.
Right.
And so like years later, like being in the one-on-one surrounded with like-minded people and a coach that I really seriously respected, and hearing other people just like me who were in the same struggle, like that was a game changer for me, because I was like, it wasn't about all this information. All that information didn't do anything except for confuse me. So I will tell you, like, if you're in the beginning, watch with the information consumption, because it's almost like this trying to feed the part of you that's very confused. And so you can spend a lot of money, like I did, consuming all these courses, thinking like, oh, maybe one of them. But you actually need, I would say for me personally, I needed the space. I needed to work with someone like one-on-one or like 1 to 5, be in a group of people who were doing what I wanted to do. Because once they all shared their struggles and lack of clarity and frustrations, I was like, oh man, I feel so seen, so heard, so validated in this group. And especially even with a one-on-one coach who was, just a few years, I would say, like she was a few years of where I really wanted to be. And she was like, oh my gosh, yeah, of course. Like I went through the same thing. So it's like,
Yeah.
that was a game changer for me, really having that like actual human versus a course. So I would say, like,
Right.
if you're in those first few years, watch out, like paying a bunch of money, because the information won't give you the clarity that you need. And I would say,
I
like, for
find that
me,
that's
going on
important
hikes,
as
yeah,
well.
for sure.
That too much information can be overwhelming, because I've done that so
Yes.
thus far already. And
Yeah.
there is something amazing when you get to work with a coach who already sees the thing that you
Yeah.
already intuitively know but forgot
Yes.
because you're so busy looking externally within that thing. I think that's very, very important. And when you're surrounded by the right community, it's amazing how you do feel so seen and heard. And I think that's to the core of who we are as humans, right? Whether we're entrepreneur or not, like how do we feel seen and heard in this journey? Because feeling that seen and heard opens that space of, being honest with ourselves, being vulnerable, and really getting down to the truth and to the core of like what we're doing and who we are and how do we serve the world, right? And I think that's a great foundation to start from when you're on that entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, because I found that whenever I felt so seen, whether it's one-on-one or like in the masterminds that I've been in, the really good ones, the fact that I could come to my mastermind group and share all my frustrations on the regular made every other thing seem like surmountable, versus in the past, it felt very insurmountable. Like when I was trying to do everything in my head alone, it was
Right.
so isolating. It was so frustrating. And,
Right.
all the fears, all the crap. I mean, then you're trying to listen to content. So you're literally in this like consuming
Yeah.
mode, and it's a miserable place to be. And like,
Right.
by the way, that's the opposite of where like ideas are born. And so
Right.
like once I started, I was in a mastermind and one-on-one at the same time. And I was like talking all this stuff out with my, colleagues in this great, amazing group who were all, and it was amazing because like there would be some days where we were all like crying our eyeballs out about something. And I'm like, how is it that we show up and we're all in the same place? And then other days we were like in rage about or whatever. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I was like, what she asked, I was getting ready to ask. Like, and so it made me feel like, hey, we're all in this together. And then I could take that like kind of solid, like it's almost like once you see other people in it, you're like not taking it so personally, Same with the coach.
Yeah.
It's like when
I
the
love how
coach
you
tells
say
you,
that, like
yeah,
being the personal thing and being in flow with other people, right? And what I'm hearing
yeah,
from that is like our mindset, right?
yeah,
I've noticed one of the best coaching programs I was in, it was really mindset focused, right? Because when we can build, a place where we can express like what's going on upstairs and what's going on in our heart emotionally and get that out and then
hmm,
realign the mindset. I think to me, that was a huge part of becoming an entrepreneur and getting that client attraction, was getting my mindset really strong and in place. Because when I wavered, right, and I had these thoughts of like, oh, I'll never achieve it, or why can't I find the clients, or why isn't this working? Always coming from like this like lack mentality. or like having those fears and those doubts like really creep in, I noticed like it was just a constant block, right? Of like, oh, I'm not moving forward. I'm not moving forward. And to find that community of like, oh, okay, well, I'm not alone in this, right? Like we all are having our frustrations. We're all having our upset days where we're crying and, we're just like, who cares? Like, let's throw the towel in the basket,
feels really good. Actually, you're like, oh, she's crying. I wanted to cry too. Now we're all crying. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, remembering that, hey, like we're having this human experience together and none of us are alone in that entrepreneurial journey. Like if someone only told me like, hey, you want to be an entrepreneur, just remember that it's going to make you face yourself. It's going to make you go and grow so much as a character and really face those doubts and those fears and those judgments that we have about ourselves, about others. Like it is emotionally and mentally growing in more than anything I've ever done before. It was like the first time I discovered yoga, like how that made me expand and grow so much. And that's probably why a lot of people give up, right? Like, oh, like I don't want to face all my crap, in the closet, So having a great coach like you or myself to be like, hey, you're not alone. I've been there. I've done that. Like, I got you. Let's do this together. And here's how we do that. So I'd love to hear like, what is a mindset thing that you've discovered that helped you or that helps your clients? It could be money mindset or emotional mindset, physical mindset, whatever that is.
Well, I've actually been focusing on my money mindset for the past, I don't know, I want to say like 6 to 8 months, because I knew that something like you said, entrepreneur brings up all your stuff and especially your money stuff, because you now have to charge for something that is related to you. It's like a part of you. And that brings up all kinds of new issues for people. Some people are cool with it, but others, we struggle with it because like, whether it's in our, taught from like both sides of our family, like our mom's family, our dad's family, or we just have these deep subconscious like scarcity beliefs, like you mentioned. Right. So I knew something was coming up.
Stuff.
Yeah, all the generational stuff can come up like literally. And to be honest, I found that EFT has been like my favorite go-to guide.
I love EFT. I literally do that with my clients. I find it so
that's
magical.
Awesome.
So
magical. So that's been a huge, like, I'm a huge fan of Brad Yates, and he has a scarcity mindset one. And I was doing that literally every day for over 6 months. And then I found all of these, I'm actually working with a money mindset healer. Her name's Polly Alexandra. She's this amazing, she's like an intuitive healer, and she actually can see and heal people's money blocks. So I did one of her programs and it was really freaking powerful. And now I'm actually working with her one-on-one for a little bit, because at every level, there's something else that you're going to need to work through. And, I use my intuition to tell me now, like, okay, what's this next step of growth? And that was like the clear, obvious answer, like working on my money mindset. And so that's what I'm working on now.
Have you ever noticed this? Like last year when I was like still kind of, somewhat newer into like doing the whole or working with clients, I would be like interviewing a client, right? And we get to the money part and, they're asking like how much it is. And, I'm like, oh, it's $14.97, like in my head, right? And then I go to talk and the words come out and I'm like, oh, it's 1,000. And I was like, wow, why would I do that? Like all of a sudden, just like take off like $500 of what I know I'm supposed to be charging. And I find that so interesting. That block of like, oh, like we know we should be charging this, and then all of a sudden we say something else, and like boom, that's a huge red flag of like, oh, there's a block there. There's something going
for
on.
Sure.
And how do we work through that? So I guess maybe you can elaborate on that after we come back from our next break. So we're going to leave you flying by what's that saying called? Like the tail of your seat or something, or
flying by the seat of your pants.
Seat of your pants. Something. There you go.
The tail of your seat. I like that.
The tail of something. Yeah. So go ahead and hang tight, y'all, and we will be back in just a moment. Thank you so much. This has been so fun so far. Hey, welcome back to the Sacred Attunement Show with me, Asher, and Natalie, our awesome guest. We've had such a great conversation so far. So before we left on our break, we were talking a little bit about, mindset and money mindset specifically when it comes to being an entrepreneur and, owning the prices that we charge, and how do we really own that, and how do we evolve from that, and like this whole evolutionary thing, right? That to me, there's a lot of emotional and mental components. We talked a little bit about the generational stuff that comes up, right? Sometimes we don't feel that we're worth charging the price we want to charge for our service, so we underball ourselves. Like, I have firsthand experience doing that. I don't do that anymore, but it's interesting how all that stuff comes up. So I wanted to kind of know, like your journey with it, your experience. How do you help your clients to break through those blocks?
Yeah, so this is a great question. And this is something that I deal with my clients literally every single call, because I think whenever you are, a highly sensitive person, an empath, a creative, like for some reason, this genre of people, we struggle to charge more. And so one of the things that like I don't say in my marketing, but I know that I absolutely do with people one-on-one, is help them expand their wealth consciousness. And this to me is really all about like how much you're willing to receive. And, some people start from one amount. It's like going from here to here is a big struggle, but some people like they can adjust and adapt and grow. And I'll tell you that all kinds of fears come up at every level. Like, I had a photography client who was literally booked out for 2022 from the work that we did. But she was like at the point of almost burning herself out in her business. And so I kept bringing up like, hey, not only do we need to increase your prices, we really need to scale back the number of offers that you're doing, because like what you're doing right now isn't sustainable.
Yeah.
And so she resisted raising her prices for these same reasons, because she didn't feel like, she had all these fears, like no one's going to pay for that. Like, I'm going to price myself out. And I was like, first of all, that none of that is actually true. It's just your brain, because you're trying to up level. And these are the fears that come up when we try to up level. And guess what? They happen at every level. Whenever you scale, your fear is going to come in. Just expect it. Expect all the like, imposter syndrome and all that shit to come in and be like, who are you to do this? No one's going to charge it, blah, 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 blah. And so like you have two choices. You can let those fears get in the way of charging what you really should be charging in your business, or you can actually like try to work with them. And I try to help people work through all those fears, because like the thing is that like what you offer, it really truly has nothing to do with your prices. So we really have to get to this point where we disconnect fully, like your worth over here and your pricing over here. Because some people, like this photographer, like she's amazing. And so it's not like she's booked out for no good reason, and she has a team, but like for some reason she was really resisting. I mean, hardcore. Had every single conversation we were having, it was like about her, just fears with pricing. So then guess what happened? She got pregnant, and she was like, oh shit, because here she booked herself out
to do it now, right?
So now she's like, oh shit. And then not to mention, like, she's having a very difficult pregnancy. So she's almost like, I'm talking like one of the most highly driven entrepreneurs who's just like, go, 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 go. Like, no matter what I say, it's like done. She's like a go, go, go type of high,
like slow down and be like, oh no, now I can't.
And it's killing her. But I said, look, we got to talk about, 2023. The prices have to go up. And guess what? It's not about you anymore. It's not about you anymore. I said, think about it this way. It's about your baby, your family, your wife, your partner, your new house, your new studio. She has all these dreams.
Right.
And I'm like, you have to start thinking about it as like, and I said, even if you have to tell people, like my coach told me that she would not work with me anymore unless, like, I was like, whatever you have to do, I don't care, but you can't, like, it's no longer about you. And guess what? It's no longer an option, because like you're going to be pregnant. Like, what option do you have?
Right.
You can't
I love
a wedding in a
Yeah.
painful pregnancy,
I
those
love
two
how you
things
said
can
that
happen.
the imposter syndrome and working
Yeah.
through blockages, because I even noticed that too in my own practice. Now, granted, I don't work with entrepreneurs, but I
Yeah.
really get into like diving into, what are the foods that we're eating, and I have like a handful, like literally probably 50% of the clients I've worked with of like, oh, wait, you want me to like change what I'm eating in order to get the results? And I'm like, yeah. And I was like, we're not looking at deprivation here. We're looking at how do we just simply have an alternative, right? Like I don't have to look at things from lack, right? It's like, oh, you want me to like take away my chips? It's like, no, we're not
Right.
taking them away. We're just simply looking at a healthier alternative, and how often are we doing that? But it's funny, so I look at it as these pattern interrupts, right? I call them
Yeah.
pattern interrupts, and that makes things uncomfortable, right? The monkey mind goes off, like you said, of like, oh, but this and this and that, and like, what if I'm like, oh my God, it's like, okay, how do we calm the monkey in the mind to work
Yes.
through that block and really shift the mindset around what we're doing and have that new perspective to be like, oh, now I see what you're trying to ask me to do with full clarity, and now I understand and I'm ready to jump in with both feet forward. Because I find that all the time when it comes, like, even especially when I have my clients be like, oh, I want you to do this breath work. Like, you're experiencing anxiety, you're experiencing depression. Well, and like, we are so untapped with our breath work that we do. Like, we don't know how to breathe in the world today. And our breath is the only thing that has mastery over the mind. And I find that so important, even as an entrepreneur, working
Yeah.
through my own blockages and my own mindset of like, when I come back to my breath work, when I come back to my meditative practices, all of a sudden I have ease again. I have grace again. I have clarity again. And then now, whatever my coach is asking me to do, I can go in and have a little more confidence with it and be like, okay, like I can trust this person for telling me why I need to do what they're asking me to do. And then little do you know, you do the thing, right? You raise your prices, slow down the people coming in, like you mentioned, and then all of a sudden, like, everything's working out. And it's funny how why are we so resistant as humans to create?
I don't know.
What is that?
And it's like, it's funny because once she right before she raised her prices, it was hilarious because this other photographer, this is how like serendipity works,
Yeah.
This other photographer reached out to her and she was like, hey, like, I know that, we're kind of like in the same field. I just want to show you like my offerings so maybe you can get some ideas for your business. Sure enough, she was charging what my client had been resisting and wanting to charge. She was like, and I tell you what, she was like, and my stuff is better than hers. I'm not saying that like out of ego, like it's genuinely. And I was like, okay, so you've got one piece of evidence. Like, are you willing to start like looking for other pieces of evidence? This is the right step, because I think that's what she needs. She's a very like logical thinker. So sometimes it's like we get these little pieces of evidence, and then the first time, that she had to tell a client what her price was, like they agreed without question. It was like so easy, And so I think like now this is like her new comfort level. And sure enough, whenever she goes to charge more in a couple years, hopefully, or whatever, now she's going to be dealing with the same fears and all the stuff. No one's going to do this. And so I would just say every level, there's a new amount of fears. Just expect it, because it doesn't mean that that's not what. And I like to say, like,
Right.
speaking of mindset, I like to say, what if the opposite of your fears were true?
Yeah.
Honestly, truly,
Right.
what if the opposite of your fears were true? Your ideal
Right.
clients were out there. They wanted to pay you exactly what you want to get paid.
Right.
What if
Right.
that were true?
Yeah.
Because
like
a lot
to
of
tell my
time our
clients
fears
that,
are like the
yeah.
opposite is actually true.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like to tell my clients that fear is simply excitement on pause. Because when you look at excitement and this, like, oh, I get to do this new thing, and fear, underneath it all, there's subtly the same frequency and the same vibration. They just feel differently in the body, and they feel differently in the mind, but really they are the same on the frequency level. And it's like, oh, interesting. Again, like shifting that perspective and remembering that fear is always going to come up. But guess what's after that? Like the joy and the excitement of like, oh my God, I did it. I owned it. I did it. I'm so proud of myself.
Yeah.
Like, you know, yeah, I think that's amazing that you, it's funny, like we work on similar things, but for totally different avenues. Yeah. And I take it that clients now, like being successful and doing her thing and enjoying her
Well,
family.
it was also like, getting her to outsource a lot whenever you're a go, go, go type of highly driven people that I
Yes.
work with. It's like, hey, we've been doing it one way, which is go, 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 go for so long that doing it the simple, easy kind of is scary for some people, especially when you've been hustling your butt off for your business for the past couple of years. To sit still can be like, like speaking of all your stuff, it's another level of all your stuff coming up. And so we've been working through like how to deal with the slow time. What can we, how can we be strategic around this slow time? And like now she's seeing that she resisted slowing down for a long time. And then the universe was like, okay, literally,
Now
she
you
can
have
barely,
to.
now you have to. And I'm like, well, I mean, because I was calling it from the beginning, but sometimes it's like, as coaches, we just have to like kind of watch these things pan out and know that at their own time, they're going to get the lessons. It's like, it's not my job to try to control them. It's my job to kind of like stand back, be supportive, and kind of like hold the space for all this stuff to unfold. Cause I know it's got like, I knew that from the first minute we talked together, like, oh, this is what's going to happen.
We have a break here coming up. So I just wanted to end with that. I think that's great. I think that's important. Yeah. As we're going through these growth phases, whether it's working to create healthier habits in our life, growing as a business entrepreneur, to have someone to hold that space for us, right? To keep us grounded in that vision. And I think that's so important with anything that we do in life. It's good to have someone be your personal cheerleader and to hold you to the highest version of yourself. And I think that's magical with the work you're doing. So we have one more break, but hang tight. We have some more yummy information to share with you. So we'll be back in just a moment. All right, welcome back to the Sacred Attunement Show. So we were so caught up in our lovely stories and exchanging all these beautiful words on how to help you entrepreneurs out there. And I forgot to ask you, Natalie, how do people find you? Do we find you through Facebook? What's your website? And what are your offers that you're offering right now?
So I'm actually not a big fan of Facebook, so I'm kind of MIA there. And to be honest, I think of all the social platforms, Instagram is probably the best one. So my website is herhabits.com. And this is an idea that, speaking of, like I like waiting for the ideas. I was on a hike in Italy and literally this idea for this entire business model came out. And I still have the map. Like when I was hiking in Italy, like I had to write it all out. I was like, oh, it's Her Habits and I help creatives and we do this with habits and this. And it was like an entire business model. So like, if you're like me and you've struggled for a long time, wait, because all of a sudden you'll get the clarity that you need. And so herhabits.com was the business, and that's my website. Also, you can also check me out. My like past creative career is nataliebiesel.com, but Instagram at, I think, _herhabits is where I'm probably most active. But one of the things that I'm going to offer the listeners is I have this 30-minute, it's a totally free call that people are more than likely or more than welcome to hop on if they have any questions, directly related to anything that we've talked about today, how to apply it to their business. So it's called a simplify to monetize your business call. It's 30 minutes. And so if you have a money mindset question or you think you're getting stuck on when it comes to scaling your business, we can hop on that call. And my goal is that you have clarity of almost like, what is it and what's blocking you from actually like moving forward? Or because sometimes it's just something as simple as, like I said, seeing that missing piece, seeing that clarity. And so like my goal is in that 30 minutes, you get some key or some relief. Sometimes it's like, hey, let this offer go and focus on this one, because when we truly like let go of what's holding us back, then we can really take off. And that's why, I call myself a minimalist business coach, is because it's all about letting go of all those things that no longer serve you, life, business. And truly, those are the things that allow you to feel light and take off. And my program is called Traveling Light for a reason. Like, let's remove all those things that are holding you back from taking off.
I love that. I think that's beautiful. Yeah, I
Yeah.
aspire to do that as well. I've gotten a nice little sample and teaser of that this year, actually. I had a client who hired me to, it was only like a 4-hour drive away, but we did like this amazing in-person retreat. This has been something I've been like wanting to create and manifest for like a year now. Like, oh, the fact of like being able to travel light, as you say, to go serve other people in different cities and in different countries, because there's all these skills that I personally have that I can't offer on the virtual space that requires me to be in person to do that. So I love that idea of like, oh, traveling light to me just has this like sense of freedom to be like, I can do and be in wherever I want, whenever I want, and still live that dream of being an entrepreneur and serving whoever, you know, your ideal client is. So I think that is.
Yeah. And it's all about like figuring out what it is for you, because every person is different and their vision for their business is different. So I work with all kinds of different business models. And so it just depends on like what you and your big vision are. And also like your personality. Like if you're an introvert like me, there's just things and people and strategies that you're never going to be okay with. Like, you know, I tried to do Facebook groups for a long time and I was like, do I really want to be on a platform that I hate on video? Okay, no. And so like I paid a lot of money to learn that strategy. And then it was just like, you know, my intuition was like, this is not for you, you know? So it's about finding those strategies that really work for you so that you can actually do this thing in a sustainable way. Cause I'm all about sustainability, taking stuff off your plate. I'm never going to be the coach that's like, hey, you should do more. I'm like, no, what are you doing? We need to like literally take all of that stuff off your plate and focus on one thing that you actually like doing, that suits your personality, that's sustainable. And when you tie that in and combine that with an offer that you love to offer, it's like, it's magical, because now you have this thing that you're passionate about. And I think passion, like if you don't have the passion, like the entrepreneurial journey will be short and sweet. Like you have to have the passion and the drive for something, because that's what makes it like sustainable. That's what makes it bigger than you, is like, oh, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I keep seeing this vision. I keep seeing it. And I keep getting like, I don't know what, like, can't see the top of the mountain, but like I can see that I'm, you know, like walking on a trail and I see like one step, and it can be scary, you know, but you know, if there's passion there, like you'll do it no matter what, because it's
I think that's important.
You're not getting that for no reason. You're not getting those signs and symbols for no reason. You're not seeing that vision unless you could do it.
Yeah, I think that goes into anything we do in life, is we have to have that passion and that purpose. And there's some of the things that you said that kind of reconnected to me of like, oh yeah, it's important to have the passion, the will drive, and the empowerment behind it, and as well as like clearing the clutter, right? Like forget about all these external things. Let's clear the clutter and have a nice solid foundation to function from. Focus on that thing and create your anchors, right? I like to have these things called anchors that I like to help my clients with. I don't know if you do something similar, but you know, finding something in our physical environment of like, oh, here's my reminder of why I'm working on this goal, this passion of mine. And right, and it's that, again, that pattern interrupt, you know, it's something that's so sweet and dear to the heart, that even on those days that you're struggling to want to take another step forward, or to show up on social media, or to send the email, or to whatever it is, you know, you're like, oh, this is why I'm doing this thing again. That's right. Because this is my passion, this is my purpose, my life's purpose. And this is why I love to serve the people I want to serve. Or maybe it's just you serving yourself so you can be there for your family, you can be there for your partner, you can be there for your loved ones, or, you know, be a better boss for your employees, right? To ease that stress. And so you don't hit the burnout, and you can have fun, right? You can live vibrant, live happy, and enjoy the process along the way. So that's how I interpret everything you said. I'm like, oh yeah, that totally connects with who I serve too in different ways. So yeah, I think that's absolutely amazing. I personally, like, even just talking to you on this call, I'm like, yeah, I want to work with Natalie. Like, so I can't wait until that day aligns for us to have that chance and that opportunity, and potentially have another talk about it, to be like, guys, look how much how much has changed in my life and my business by working with her. So yeah, I think that's awesome. So thank you for being here today and showing.
I'm all about
your
like
wisdom.
literally follow your intuition, and when the timing is right, reach out, because I think we each know who our people are, and if something keeps coming up, like for me, there was a coach that I had followed for years before I hired her, and that's totally normal. Sometimes it's years, sometimes it's months. I think when you get further along the journey, those decisions become quicker. You're like, oh, this is my next person. I know that, but like, trust whatever your intuition that you're getting and the timing for yourself, because like, it really is like divine timing when you work with someone, because now like both of your energies are coming together. And so like you have to be in a space like, are you ready? Are you ready?
Yes.
Because it's like that intentionality and making it official. And so for some people that can be scary. It's like, oh God, I don't want to make it official, because then all those other fears come in, So it's about like, oh, I'm making this thing official, and I'm ready, and I'm scared, but I'm doing it anyway.
Yeah, again, coming back to that change is scary. You're like, oh my God, I said yes. I said yes to myself. Like, oh my God. Which I think is sometimes a foreign concept, right? We're so used to saying yes to everybody else. So the fact of saying yes to ourselves, whether that's stepping into entrepreneurship or just making some lifestyle habit changes that are going to fuel your dreams and your goals and your purpose, can be scary, but it's so worth it. I always tell my clients, I'm like, if you stay where you're at now, staying in the same job or doing the same habits, whatever it is, are you going to be happy with that when you're like 70, 80 years old? Or are you going to look back and be like, oh my God, like I have regret. I should have said yes to myself, and I should have at least taken the risk. Which one is worth it to you? Left or right? And feel into that. Which option is going to give you that joy, and like, man, I did it. I took life by the reins and I freaking did it. I owned it.
Yeah, I think about that all the time. Would I regret not doing this, or would I regret doing this?
Yeah.
So like a lot of decisions, that helps me clarify as well. Like, I think if the doors closed and I wasn't, signed up, I think I would be, because it's making those decisions is a very scary process. But then once you get through that, it's like, oh, now I have this regular habit of having a coach, and it's just it's like a new normal again. It's like, oh, that decision was scary, and now it's normalized. And now the next
we only
decision,
have a couple minutes left, I just want to ask one quick question to wrap it up, since we have a minute. Is there a quick like quote or something, or a message that you want to share with the people real quick to kind of leave them with for the show?
Quick quote.
A quote or just something inspiring.
I would say like my entire business model is all about like simple by design. And honestly, it's like speaks for itself, but everything in your life and business can be simple if you design it that way. It takes time, but it can be simple. Permission to keep it simple, permission to keep it focused, easy, allow things to be easy, permission for things to be easy. Give yourself permission to allow it when it's easy. Because in the Creative Morning Talk, a couple people were like, oh, my business is growing, but I don't do marketing. And I'm like, well, girl,
perfect.
What's wrong with that?
Simple by design. That is a great way to leave it off. But we are done with the show. So thank you, Natalie, for being with us today. And I love everything that you shared, and I can't wait to have you back. So blessings to everyone. Love, peace, and light. Have a beautiful rest of your week. Until next time. Bye.
You have been listening to the Sacred Attunement Show with Asher Countryman, unlocking the power of mind, body, soul abundance. Tune in live every first and third Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on transformationtalkradio.com. Give yourself the gift of a vibrant, happy, healthy lifestyle. For more information on mastering your spiritual growth or to connect with Asher, visit sacredattunement.com. Again, that's sacredattunement.com.